Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel, thank you. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Renegade Immortal based on novel. So let's start. After he landed, he casually waved his right hand and the giant toad quickly shrank until it was the size of his palm. It then jumped onto his shoulder. Its stomach rapidly expanded and shrank while it croaked. When he landed on the ground, everything within 3 feet of him immediately began to sizzle and a stream of black gas rose from the ground. Wang Lin calmly retreated a few steps as he coldly observed the person. This person used poison, so his caution was raised by another level. Six Desire Devil Lord Shuliching frowned and said, "I haven't seen you in 1,000 years. Why is that poisonous stink on you even worse now?" The old hunchback rolled his eyes and said, "Others might be afraid of your Six Desire spell, but I'm not. 1,000 years ago, we fought to a stalemate. Could it be that you want to fight again?" With that, he touched the toad on his shoulder and creepily laughed. Six Desire Devil Lord coldly stared at the hunchback. Soon, the spiritual energy between them began to go crazy, but the fluctuations soon calmed down as the two withdrew their spiritual energy. Just at this moment, Ancient Emperor, who had been looking coldly from the side, suddenly said, "Looks like everyone is here. I have stolen the Icy Wind shield from a rank 4 cultivation country. It should help us finish more than half of the first trial." Six Desire Devil Lord coldly said, "I'll deal with the second half of the first trial." Hunchback Meng touched the pustule on his face and said, with a hoarse voice, "Just watch this old man for the second trial." Duan Muji looked toward Wang Qingyu and said, "That person is Wang Qingyu. He knows the 5-element escape technique, which is useful to us. This little friend knows the death spell. The third trial's divine sense attack will depend on him." Hunchback Meng's foggy eyes swept past Wang Lin, but he didn't say a word. Six Desire Devil Lord's hand formed mysterious seals as he walked toward the transfer array. After sending out several seals, the entire formation began to shatter from the inside. Bursts of green gas came from the transfer array, until no more came out, and the array was completely shattered. Then his body disappeared as he began to walk through the shattered array. Every time he took a step, he would leave a trace of spiritual energy on the ground. He began to move faster and more traces of spiritual energy were left on the ground. Finally, he began to leave behind after images. Now it looked like there were several people walking around the array. After a short period of time, all of the after images disappeared. Only the original body remained at the center of the array. Then his hand began to move, taking out a lot of precious materials. Finally, he spat out a purple flame. All of those materials melted when they were touched by the fire. Six Desire Devil Lord pointed with this finger. The liquids of various colors began to move and entered the array in a certain order. When the final liquid entered the array, it began to rumble. After seeing the change in the transfer array, he began to hesitate and backed out of the chaotic broken stars. He arrived next to Duan Muji as he stared at the 4 top-quality spirit stones. A hint of greed flashed across his eyes. After he returned, his avatar slowly faded away and returned to rocks that slowly rotated around the area. Wang Lin also stared at the top-quality spirit stones with temptation in his eyes. The Sea of Devils was very large. If not for the ancient transfer arrays allowing people to teleport across it, it would take too long to travel through it. It was also filled with danger. However, the only way to use these ancient transfer arrays was to have top-quality spirit stones. Since top-quality spirit stones were so rare, all of the ancient transfer arrays in the Sea of Devils were in a state of disrepair, and many of them were completely useless. At this moment, Ancient Emperor took out 2 top-quality spirit stones and looked at them with great importance. Then he threw them toward the pillars of light, where they remained unmoving. Duan Muji clenched his teeth as he took out his last 2 top-quality spirit stones from his bag of holding. His heart ached as he threw them toward the light. Of the 10 pillars, 8 of them had top-quality spirit stones. The last person was Hunchback Meng. He patted the toad on his shoulder. The toad's belly expanded as it spat 2 things into the light pillars. At this moment, all 10 pillars had top-quality spirit stones in them. The light pillars suddenly disappeared. All of the light had gathered on the top-quality spirit stones. These 10 spirit stones were shining like 10 bright suns. They slowly descended onto the transfer array, causing it to slowly spin. Ancient Emperor was the first to walk out. He stared at the oval-shaped ring in the sky with a hint of obsession. He jumped up and appeared next to the ring of light, before circling around it for a bit. He said, "It seems that no one else has come here in these past 1,000 years. The seal we left is still intact." With that, he opened his arms and moved around before the ring. Every now and then, there would be black slivers that came out and entered his hand. Wang Lin could clearly feel Duan Muji, 6 Desire Devil Lord, and Hunchback Meng let out a breath of relief after hearing those words. He looked around and saw that the plain inside the chaotic broken stars was completely empty. It looked endless and was covered by a similarly endless dark sky. Wang Lin understood that this was some kind of powerful restriction. There was complete silence in this plain, without any signs of activity. 6 Desire Devil Lord looked at Wang Qingyu and Wang Lin before saying, in a heavy tone, "Welcome to the chaotic broken stars. No matter if Duanmu has talked to you two about this place before, I must emphasize again. After passing through the oval ring, you will enter a mysterious space. According to the information we got from an inheritance, the corpse of an ancient god is there. The ancient god's power came from their bodies, so their bodies were extremely large. Even the weakest ancient god was at least the size of planet Suzaku. I can tell you that this ancient god is a fully grown adult. Its size is like countless planet Suzaku's. The reason why there are countless treasures inside is because although the ancient god is dead, its divine sense is not destroyed, but remains in a hibernating state. If we can get inside and obtain its memory, then any technique from its memories will be an unimaginably powerful technique today. As for magic treasures, because none of the magic treasures used by the ancient gods can fit inside a bag of holding, all of them are held within its body. If you are lucky, you will be able to find one." 6 Desire Devil Lord looked at Wang Qingyu and said, "As for items, they will be distributed equally, but if there is a soul transformation pill, then let our skills decide." Duan Muji let out a sly chuckle and said, "It is a bit too early to talk about this matter. It won't be too late to decide once we break the restriction." Hunchback Meng's gaze landed on the young man following 6 Desire Devil Lord. He said, "I wonder what this little friend will do to help us break through the restriction." 6 Desire Devil Lord looked at Wang Lin and coldly said, "Same as him, this person will be of use in the third trial. This person is a cultivator from the rank 3 cultivation country Qianzhou. He is good at ghost techniques that might be useful against the creatures inside the third trial. I spent quite a few years to find him. So it's like that, the third trial. Back then, we were stopped at the third trial. I hope we can break through that trial this time." Hunchback Meng let out a strange smile as his gaze swept between Wang Lin and that young man. Ancient Emperor, who was in front of the oval, began to move his arms even faster, causing black slivers to appear like rain. His expression became serious as he closed his hand and pushed forward. Suddenly, countless black slivers came out from the ring. They gathered and formed the shape of a dragon. It let out a roar before shrinking down and landing in Ancient Emperor's palm. "It is ready. Come in." Ancient Emperor took a deep breath. After putting away the dragon, he took out 2 jade bracelets. The larger bracelet was red and the smaller bracelet was grey. Holding the 2 bracelets, Ancient Emperor hesitated for a bit before stepping into the ring and disappearing. 6 Desire Devil Lord's eyes narrowed as he grabbed the young man and jumped in. Wang Qingyu licked his lips and followed in. The last 2 remaining were Duan Muji and Hunchback Meng. After they looked at each other, they turned to Wang Lin. Without a word, Wang Lin flew into the air and stopped before the ring of light. He extended his hand to Duan Muji and said, "Since I have arrived at this place, I hope Senior can keep his promise." Duan Muji laughed and said, "There is no rush. Once we have broken past the third trial, I'll naturally give it to you." Wang Lin coldly looked at him and didn't say a word. Hunchback Meng let out a sly chuckle as he watched them. He was done watching the 2 of them, so he walked past Duan Muji and into the ring. Duan Muji stared at Wang Lin. He pondered for a bit before taking out 2 pills and threw them at Wang Lin. He said, with a heavy tone, "Take them." Wang Lin caught them and examined them. They were indeed as Li Muwen had described. The smaller one was the Earth Transformation Pill, and the larger one was the Nascent Forming Pill. After carefully putting them away, Wang Lin walked into the ring without a word. When he entered, he felt like he had walked through a thin film. The scene before him made him suck in a breath of cold air and stare at what was before him dumbfoundedly. At this moment, Six Desire Devil Lord's voice came in from the distance. There are no dangers here as it is just a passageway. You only need to remain on the stone pillar. After Wang Lin heard this, he sat down and looked at the stone pillars slowly moving forward. He noticed that no one was paying attention to him, so he put his hand into his shirt and touched the bag of holding he had gotten at the Hufen Union. His divine sense entered the bag, but there was no reaction. Wang Lin was startled, but it was not the time to test it, so he slowly withdrew his right hand and looked at his surroundings. Wang Qingyu, who had been looking over the edge of the stone pillar, suddenly shouted, "What is that?" In the endless void below them, two bright lamps suddenly lit up. These two lamps were several feet wide. Wang Lin spread out his divine sense and found that they weren't lamps at all, but a pair of eyes. At the same time, Duan Muji looked toward Wang Lin. When he saw that Wang Lin's expression was calm, he hesitated a bit before sending a voice transmission saying, "Follow me." With that, he quickly flew into the distance. Wang Lin caught Hunchback Meng's pill, but he didn't immediately take it. He looked around and after seeing everyone else take them, he put it into his mouth as he jumped into the air. Everyone quickly escaped by jumping from one stone pillar to the next. The pillars seemed to go on endlessly. Wang Lin stayed close behind Duan Muji. The roar from below became louder and louder and the surrounding stone pillars seemed to tremble. At this moment, one of the stone pillars behind them shattered as the snake's head smashed into it. After the pillar shattered, the giant head came up, revealing its cold gaze. A wave of fishy smell came from behind them. Wang Lin held the pill in his mouth as he jumped as quickly as he could behind everyone. As for the abnormality behind them, no one but the young man turned back to look. Everyone else was focused entirely on moving forward. At the same time, Six Desire Devil Lord and Ancient Emperor stopped moving. The two of them didn't say any useless words to each other. Ancient Emperor had a very serious expression as he threw out an ancient bell. The moment the ancient bell appeared, it immediately became large and began to wave back and forth. As the bell rang, it sent shockwaves out, causing the surrounding stone pillars to shatter. The snake who was descending from the sky twisted its body to turn and landed headfirst into the shockwave. It immediately let out a roar and spat out black smoke. This black smoke was very powerful. The moment the surrounding stone pillars touched it, they would turn into black dust and disappear. The black smoke that was spat out by the snake was dealt with by Hunchback Meng. He touched one of the pustules on his face and popped it. A very powerful stench came from that popped pustule, as well as a black liquid. The hunchback's body suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already before the black smoke. His face looked terrifying at this moment as he opened his mouth and sucked in all of the black smoke. Gradually, the hump on his back became larger and larger. After all the black smoke was sucked up by him, it looked as if he had a small mountain on his back. He stood wobbling back and forth on a stone pillar while staring at the snake-like creature. He was silently pondering. Slivers of black gas that came out of the pustule that he had broken was sucked in by the toad on his shoulder. Six Desire Devil Lord's hand moved to form seals, and as he recited a mysterious chant. At the same time, Ancient Emperor threw out the bell. When he did this, his gaze fell on Wang Lin. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He quickly backed up and without any hesitation, took out the nascent level charm. At the same time, he opened his mouth to spit out the crystal sword. The crystal sword floated before him with its tip pointed at Six Desire Devil Lord. Six Desire Devil Lord's gaze paused for a moment before shifting it to the young man next to him. The young man's face looked terrified as he stared at the snake-like creature, his body trembling. Six Desire Devil Lord's eyes lit up as he suddenly shouted, "Fear." The young man's body suddenly started trembling. Black gas came out of his nostrils and his mouth. The black gas quickly gathered to form a black sword that floated in front of Six Desire Devil Lord. The young man's body waved back and forth as he stood there dumbfounded with a look of confusion in his eyes. Hunchback Meng's eyes lit up as he stared at the snake-like creature from a stone pillar in the distance. He licked his lips and was about to charge out, but the creature had already closed its big mouth. Hunchback Meng's abnormal behavior was noticed by Wang Lin. He was wary of everyone present, especially this expert poison user. At this moment, Six Desire Devil Lord's gaze turned to the young man beside him again. He pointed at the young man's head and shouted, "Anger." A reddish-purple gas came out of the young man's mouth and nose. The gas shaped another sword that floated before Six Desire Devil Lord. Duan Muji's expression was dark as he looked toward Wang Qingyu. They seemed to understand each other as they both quickly jumped down to the snake's body, took out their magic treasures, and began their attacks. Duan Muji no longer used the gourd, but a very large hammer. Every time he lifted the hammer, many balls of lighting would form and would fall down along with it. Wang Qingyu didn't use any magic treasures. When his hands formed a seal, the ancient words for metal, wood, water, fire, and earth appeared. They formed a 5-elemental formation that slammed into the body of the snake. Wang Lin's heart trembled. The techniques of these 5 people were all powerful beyond imagination. They were not at all things normal people could match. The one that caught his eye the most was 6 Desire Devil Lord's technique. This technique required a sacrifice to be used, and that young man became the unfortunate target. The snake-like creature felt pain. It let out a roar and frantically twisted its body. A vortex began to form around it, and the surrounding stone pillars began to be pulled in toward the snake-like creature. After this large vortex appeared, Duan Muji and Wang Qingyu were the first ones to charge back in. The two of them had very dark expressions on their faces. As for Ancient Emperor, his face was even more ugly as the connection between him and his treasure had disappeared. The vortex became larger and larger. The powerful suction force forced everyone to quickly back away. Hunchback Meng flew past Wang Lin. His goal was the other snake inside this snake's mouth. Wang Lin saw this and immediately switched directions. He followed the throat and went in deeper. His target was this creature's spine. Li Muwen once said that with any of these dragon-like creatures, the most valuable part wasn't the core, but the marrow. The reason why Wang Lin risked going in there was for the marrow. From the moment he saw this snake-like creature, he had been secretly observing it. Li Muwen once said that the effect of the bone marrow depended on the age of the dragon. If the dragon had reached a certain age, then it could help increase the chance of forming one's nascent soul. Although he didn't know if this creature was considered a dragon, even if it wasn't, it should be considered the same type of creature. If he could get the marrow, then it should at least have some effect. This was why he charged in the moment the creature opened its mouth a second time. He also knew that Hunchback Meng would come in as well. When the snake first opened its mouth, he saw Hunchback Meng's various expressions. This made him even more committed to do this. At first he was afraid that people would suspect him after he obtained the marrow, but now that Hunchback Meng was in here, then if anything abnormal were to happen to the creature, it could be blamed on Hunchback Meng. Also, the two chose 2 different paths that had no chance of intersecting with each other. Hunchback Meng wouldn't be able to notice what Wang Lin was doing, so there shouldn't be any problems. Soon, he arrived at the head. There was a flashing red filament at the spot where the head and neck connected. Wang Lin took a deep breath and activated all of the spiritual energy in his body. He slapped his bag of holding and suddenly hundreds of flying swords appeared. His divine sense spread out to take control of all of them. All of the flying swords' tips pointed at the red filament and attacked it fiercely. At this moment, the snake-like creature seemed to notice that something was wrong, so it started to violently twist its body. Wang Lin was now worried. He waved his hand and the hundreds of flying swords began to attack again. Finally, after a loud bang, the filament broke and a powerful, fishy stench flooded out. Wang Lin quickly moved to the side and hugged the wall. The pill in his mouth came into effect, blocking out the fishy stench. After the fishy stench had passed, Wang Lin quickly entered the hole he had created. At this moment, the body of the smaller snake that was inside the large body began to shrink. Wang Lin had a feeling that this creature wouldn't be killed so easily. If the large snake had a smaller snake inside, could the smaller snake have another snake inside it? More importantly, Hunchback Meng said that this snake was a desolate beast, which was the same as a peak late-stage soul formation cultivator. It has to be said that peak late-stage soul formation cultivators are the most powerful people in rank 4 cultivation countries. Unless Ancient Emperor and them were also at the peak of late-stage soul formation, they wouldn't be able to kill it. According to Hunchback Meng's words from before, Wang Lin believed that none of them were at the peak of late-stage soul formation. At most, they were at the mid-stage. As a result, there was no chance for infighting it at all, and each person could only escape on their own. Wang Lin's original plan was to escape, but after observing it, he noticed that aside from having a very tough body and being able to spew that black smoke, the snake didn't seem to have any other abilities. This surprised Wang Lin greatly. He looked at everyone else. Although none of those old guys had said a word, they were all filled with doubt. Wang Lin had a wild guess that this beast only had the body of a desolate beast, but not the techniques of one. Wang Lin's eyes sparkled. Not only did he not leave, but he hugged the wall of flesh to hide himself. Just at this moment, a smaller, red dragon came out from the dried-up smaller snake. It passed by Wang Lin in a flash and chased after Hunchback Meng. Wang Lin remained motionless as he hugged the wall. After Hunchback Meng and the dragon passed by, his eyes sparkled. Hunchback Meng had no good intentions when he told Wang Lin to escape. He most likely wanted Wang Lin leave with him so that Wang Lin could help him split the attention of the red dragon. Wang Lin sneered in his heart. He did not want to get involved with these people. If he could open the third trial, then there would be no problem, but he didn't really know any death spell. If he can't open the third trial, those demonic cultivators will definitely kill him to vent their anger. And even if he somehow opens the third trial, although they wouldn't kill him right away, he would likely become used for 6 Desired Devil Lord's technique. Wang Lin had a very vivid memory of that young man's confused eyes. Wang Lin originally wanted to try to look for a chance to escape during the first 2 trials, and if he couldn't find a chance, then he would stir up some trouble in the third trial. When everyone runs for their lives, they won't have time to bother paying attention to him. He carefully placed the golden drop of liquid into the jade bottle and finally let out a sigh of relief. After putting it away in his bag of holding, he quickly moved toward the snake's head and exited through the gap between the snake's teeth. Before him was complete darkness, without any source of light. Wang Lin's hand formed seals as he shouted, "Go!" Suddenly, a ball of fire the size of his head appeared and floated forward. Using the light from the fire, Wang Lin observed his surroundings. His expression gradually became stranger. This place was also another pillar floating in the void, only this pillar was hundreds of times larger than the ones from before. The huge, snake-like creature had its head resting on this stone pillar while the rest of its body was dangling down into the void. The creature's eyes were closed and it didn't show any signs of life. Wang Lin assumed that when the red dragon left, it was like when a nascent soul cultivator's nascent soul leaves their body. The beast most likely temporarily lost its vitals and fell down here. This would also explain why the creature didn't move at all when he extracted the marrow. Apart from the fact that the stone pillars were hundreds of times larger, the speed at which these stone pillars moved was also a bit faster. In addition to all of this, he could sense danger coming from all sides. Wang Lin took each step very carefully. Most of the time, he would only move a few meters before stopping to observe his surroundings. Only when he was sure that it was safe did he dare to move. At this moment, he had just landed on a stone pillar when his body froze. A black figure flashed by before him. Wang Lin held his breath and remained motionless. All he did was stare straight ahead. After some time, he was able to make out an outline. At the center of the pillar was a mass with countless tentacles extending from its body and moving in a random fashion. The black figure that flashed by was one of its tentacles. After Wang Lin saw this, he began to back up. If this creature could survive here, then it must be very powerful, so it was not something he could mess with. He backed up several meters and arrived at the edge of the pillar. He kept his eyes on the figure in the center as he jumped off the edge and gently floated away. It wasn't until he was more than 100 feet away that Wang Lin dared to exhale. He looked at the endless void above him and couldn't help but let out a bitter smile. Only by returning to the set of stone pillars he was on before could he find the ring of light to leave this place. Wang Lin pondered for a while. He didn't dare to spread out his divine sense too far in fear of provoking some powerful creature that would bring him a lot of danger. His body slowly flew upward and immediately stopped once he saw a black figure. Only after making sure it was a stone pillar did he slowly close in on it. This red dragon had already obtained a certain level of intelligence and knew that the person who stole the marrow couldn't have gotten far, so it continued to search with a fierce gaze. After finding nothing for a long time, it smashed into a few more stone pillars before it unwillingly lied down on top of one stone pillar and started to calm down. But soon it moved again and charged toward the figure with countless tentacles that Wang Lin had previously seen. As the dragon rushed toward it, the tentacles formed a cone with the creature's core as the base and faced the dragon without any sign of fear. A series of rumbles came from below, and at the same time various colored lights flashed in the darkness. Powerful fluctuation of spiritual energy spread out like a hurricane. One by one, the stone pillars nearby were destroyed. Even the stone pillar Wang Lin was in was affected, half of it was destroyed. This epic battle lasted about a day before it slowly calmed down. The shadow that was angered by the dragon was in the end defeated and forced to retreat. The dragon was also seriously injured though. It let out a few roars before laying down on the stone pillar. 10 days later, Wang Lin came out of the heaven-defying bead and landed on top of the stone pillar. He immediately spread out his divine sense and carefully observed his surroundings. It was very clear that there were fewer stone pillars around and a lot more pieces of shattered stones. Only after a long time did Wang Lin let out a breath of relief. He pondered for a bit before flying upwards. After passing a few stone pillars, Wang Lin suddenly stopped. He saw that one of the stone pillars further ahead suddenly disappear. Wang Lin's expression became serious as he slowly backed up. He waved his hand and some of the shattered stones came toward him. He pointed at one and whispered, "Go." That shattered stone quickly flew forward. Wang Lin stared straight ahead and saw that after the stone flew forward for a bit, it suddenly disappeared. Wang Lin took a deep breath. He saw that when the stone disappeared, a black hole opened up for an instant. Because the speed was too fast and it was hard to see, it looked like the stone had just mysteriously disappeared. Wang Lin pondered for a bit as he stared forward and took out a flying sword. When the flying sword appeared before him, he pointed forward and it shot out. It suddenly arrived at the spot where the stones had disappeared. The black hole suddenly appeared again to devour the flying sword, but just at that moment Wang Lin shouted, "Shatter." The biological structure of these creatures were extremely strange. Even with his divine sense, it was hard to find any clues. Wang Lin was only able to come to this conclusion due to the fact that he was a soul devourer for many years, and had encountered spatial rifts countless times. Wang Lin was very careful along the way. Every step in this place was dangerous. If he was careless for even a moment, he could die. This was especially true for a mere core formation cultivator like himself. It wouldn't be wrong to say that he was in a completely forbidden area where the smallest oversight could get him killed. After spending a lot of time, Wang Lin calculated that he had only moved about 10,000 feet. These 10,000 feet would have only taken him a moment to traverse normally, but now it had taken him several days. Wang Lin could no longer calculate exactly how many days it had been as all of his energy was spent on being alert. Time slowly passed. Wang Lin himself had lost track of how long he had been in here. Being on full alert all the time had time and time again let him slip past dangerous situations. On this day, Wang Lin was sitting on a stone pillar to rest. Although he hadn't used up much spiritual energy, his mind was very tired. This was all thanks to the fact that before ending up here, Wang Lin had always been extremely cautious. If it was anyone else, they would have already been tired out from being on high alert for so long and died. After resting for a while, Wang Lin took a deep breath and stood up. He pointed to the air several times to bring out the crystal sword. The sword circled the stone pillar and shaved off small pieces of stone that were sticking out. Wang Lin waved his hands and the shattered stones gathered around him. Over the past several days, he had used these shattered stones to pave the way for him. Now that all of them were used up, he had to get more from a nearby pillar. After these shattered stones formed a ring around him, he jumped off the pillar and slowly flew forward. Once he had flown out a bit, he stopped and carefully looked around. The darkness here was not as bad. The higher up he went, brighter it got. As for where this light was coming from, he didn't have time to think about it. Right now he was carefully observing his surroundings, because he felt like something bad was about to happen. His eyes had gotten completely used to the darkness, so with this amount of light, he could clearly see everything. He calculated for a bit and realized that in a radius of about 100,000 feet, there was only one floating stone pillar. Everything about this area was too different from normal. Wang Lin knew that there should have been a stone pillar every few hundred feet. Even if they had been shattered, there would still be rubble floating around. However, there was nothing here. There were only two explanations. The first was there was a huge battle here at some point and the shockwave was so powerful that it pushed everything except for that stone pillar far away, resulting in what he was seeing now. The second was that there were countless of those invisible creatures here, and they had cleaned this place up after years of devouring. After making his decision, he backed up and used the crystal sword to get himself more shattered stones to surround himself with before flying to the side. Wang Lin's face gradually became even more gloomy. He had already flown very far, but this empty area seemed to be endless. After flying for several days, he had to give up on the idea of going around the creatures. It was very clear that he couldn't go around it. If he wished to leave here, he would have to go through it. Wang Lin secretly sighed. He pointed at the crystal sword and commanded it toward a stone pillar behind him. The crystal sword kept breaking pieces of the stone pillar off, and they all floated into the ring around Wang Lin. Gradually, more and more shattered stones gathered around him. After reaching 5 or 6 rings, he withdrew the crystal sword after making some calculations. Wang Lin charged into the empty area with a massive amount of stones revolving around him. He slowed down once he went deep into the blank area and calmly moved forward. There were no signs of danger. However, this did not make Wang Lin stop being cautious, it made him even more alert. After being in this strange place for so long, Wang Lin didn't believe that such a calm and peaceful place existed. Instead, he thought that he was only feeling a false sense of safety, because there was a very powerful creature somewhere near. He was on full alert, the crystal sword was hidden among the shattered stones, and he was holding a nascent soul-level charm in his hand. His divine sense was spread out and checking his surroundings. There was also a sliver of it connected to his bag of holding to ensure that he was ready to take stuff out of it in any situation. He slowly made his way to the center of the calm area. From his current position, if he were to look to his side, he would be able to draw a straight line to where the stone disappeared before. Wang Lin became even more alert. After traveling for a few steps, he suddenly sensed a great amount of danger from his divine sense. He didn't hesitate at all to quickly back up and use the nascent soul-level charm to form a light screen before him. The moment his body backed up, 2 arcs appeared where he was just standing. The 2 arcs connected and formed the shape of a big, open mouth. The nascent soul-level charm shook violently in his hand and turned to dust. Using this chance, Wang Lin quickly backed up. Cold sweat appeared on his forehead as he stared at the big mouth that was closing. His heart was shaking violently. This spatial rift-like creature didn't open its mouth when the rocks came through, but waited for when he passed by. It seemed that it had made Wang Lin its target. Wang Lin pondered for a bit. Looking at the remaining distance, he was only halfway across. He couldn't help but let out a bitter smile, because that was the only nascent soul-level charm he had. This showed that the power of that mouth was stronger than the attack of a nascent soul cultivator. If Wang Lin had been touched by that creature's mouth at all, then he would at least be heavily injured, if not dead. He took a deep breath. After pondering for a bit, he took out a large amount of defensive treasures from his bag of holding without any hesitation. These were treasures he had gotten from killing all those cultivators. However, because they were all low-quality treasures, they had been used by him because he saw them as expendable. In these 3 days of time, he encountered many life and death situations. One time, half of his body was inside a mouth. If he hadn't entered the heaven-defying bead in time, he would have already died. Luckily, the heaven-defying bead was not inside the mouth of the creatures, so when he came back out, he was not inside the creature's mouth. However, Wang Lin was afraid of entering the heaven-defying bead now, because if the heaven-defying bead were to get devoured, then even if he avoided death for the moment, he wouldn't be able to avoid it when the time to be inside it runs out. Seeing that there was less than 10 kilometers left, Wang Lin took a deep breath and pushed forward. Suddenly, a mouth began to open before him. Just as Wang Lin was about to dodge, his divine sense suddenly felt a sense of danger. The one thing he was most afraid of happened. Mouths shaped like arcs appeared all around him. Those creatures were all opening their mouths simultaneously. Wang Lin felt very frustrated as he frantically searched through his bag of holding until he came upon a very plain-looking, white jade. This was the defensive formation that Li Muwen had given him as a parting gift to use when he went into closed-door cultivation. Wang Lin didn't hesitate to throw out the jade. He had already made up his mind, if things went bad, he could only enter the heaven-defying bead. Even if the space the bead was in ended up being devoured, it was the only choice. The moment he threw out the jade, the surrounding mouths all opened completely and approached him. However, just at this moment, a ring of green light appeared next to Wang Lin. Then it suddenly spread out, and a green dragon came out of the jade. As the dragon appeared, the mouths began to devour the ring of light that had spread out. The ring of light continued to shake as the dragon circled around Wang Lin. Wang Lin jumped and forcibly charged out through the gap between 2 of the mouths. During this process, the dragon continued to roar as its figure became more and more faded. With this charge, Wang Lin covered the last 10 kilometers without stopping. Many mouths opened up along the way, but they were all blocked by the green dragon around him. After completely leaving the calm area, the green dragon was about to collapse. Wang Lin quickly sent out a few seals, causing the dragon become a green gas again, and sending it back into the white jade. On this day, he stood on top of a cone-shaped stone pillar. His eyes lit up as he looked up. He had been flying horizontally among stone pillars of this size for a very long time, and now he found that oval ring of light. In the void above him floated a very large oval ring of light. He felt a bit of regret, because he didn't go to the trials. If he completed the trials, he would be able to enter the ancient god's body. There would definitely be things he needed in there, but after going through the dangers of this place, Wang Lin knew that with his cultivation, there was no way for him to survive here. He let out a sigh of regret, as he jumped up and flew toward the ring of light. However, just as he was about to touch the ring, bolts of purple lightning appeared. The bolts intersected with each other and formed a concave, rhombic pattern. Wang Lin was startled. He couldn't move forward. It was as if there was a powerful force preventing him from doing so. His eyes sparkled as he stared at the concave, rhombic pattern. This concave was just big enough for a top-quality spirit stone. Wang Lin immediately backed up. At the same time, the concave rhombic pattern disappeared and the purple lightning returned to the ring of light. He tried it again several times, and the concave rhombic pattern appeared every time. Wang Lin began to ponder. His eyes sparkled as he looked at it for a while before turning around and flying upwards. He remembered that this place was simply the passage to the first trial. As long as he sat on top of a stone pillar, he would be able to pass through here. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.